She almost lost her purpose in exchange for her mother's last wish. But what really happened? Come on, guys, let's find out together. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel for more of our latest movies. The story kicks off with a young man and woman, George and Faith. As Faith entered the room, George went down on one knee and proposed to her, and she said yes. But guess what, guys? It was only a dream. Faith is a nun, fulfilling her late mother's final wish. She was seen smiling in her sleep until another sister noticed and quickly woke her up. Panting, Faith narrated the dream, and the sister screamed in shock. Nuns are not allowed to get married. She warned Faith that it was a sign of a spiritual husband and urged her to pray, leaving Faith frightened. Meanwhile, that same day, George sat in his living room while two young ladies came downstairs arguing over who was his real girlfriend, only to discover that neither of them was. Who do you think George truly loves? The next morning, George was seen jogging with his friend, chatting and laughing as they went. That same day, Faith met with the Mother Superior, who commended her for her good work and obedience, even though it was her mother's wish that she become a nun. Then we meet Mama Rose, Faith's aunt. While walking down the street, she caught two young lovers expressing their feelings and immediately stopped them, scolding and chasing them away. Back to Faith. She dreamt again, this time of being in a restaurant with George. Later that day, she told her friend about it, and her friend screamed so loud that the other sisters came to check on them. They all laughed and chatted afterward. The next day, Mama Rose was at the backyard when a young man named Kalu came to see her. She was excited to see him until he asked about Faith, the woman he planned to marry. Mama Rose sadly told him that Faith had become a nun to honor her mother's wish. Disappointed, Kalu left with a heavy heart. The following morning, Faith was once again in her dream world with George, enjoying a beautiful moment. When her roommate woke her, Faith immediately started casting and binding, declaring she never wanted to see him again. Curious, her roommate asked if she was forced to become a nun, but Faith said no. It was her choice. Meanwhile, that same morning, George rushed downstairs, panicking as he called his friend. The lady he had been with had suddenly passed out and wasn't responding despite all his efforts to wake her. Terrified, he prayed to God for mercy, promising to change his ways. Moments later, his friend arrived, but the lady was still unconscious. As they tried to figure out what to do, she suddenly woke up, explaining that she often fainted when things got too intense. Shocked and angry, George quickly threw her out. A day later, Faith had the same dream again and forgot about the morning mass. Her roommate woke her up, and Faith explained the dream again. They chatted before getting ready for the day. Later that day, the Mother Superior called Faith, wanting to know why she missed the morning mass. Faith explained everything about her dreams. After listening carefully, the Mother Superior said, "It may have been your mother's wish for you to be a nun, but what if it isn't God's will?" They discussed it deeply for a while. Afterward, Faith walked with her roommate, trying to make her understand what the Mother Superior meant. But her roommate didn't believe it. That same day, Mama Rose called Faith, reminding her to stay focused on her spiritual duties. However, the following day, Faith dreamt again. This time she woke up suddenly, disturbed by what she saw. 2 days later, George's car broke down. As he tried to fix it, Faith and Sister Agnes happened to walk by. George approached them to ask for help, but the moment Faith saw his face, she ran away in fear. Everyone was shocked, especially George. Moments later, the Mother Superior met Faith to ask what was wrong. Faith confessed that George was the same man she always saw in her dreams. The Mother Superior believed her completely, but Sister Agnes didn't. She thought Faith was hallucinating. Offended, Faith decided never to tell her anything again. Back to George, he told his friend what had happened, wondering why Faith reacted that way when she saw him. The next evening, George returned, hoping to see Faith again, but he wasn't allowed to. He left his contact instead. Before leaving, Faith asked for his name, and when he said George, she froze in disbelief. 2 days later, after morning mass, the Mother Superior called Faith, telling her that the young man came to look for her. She asked if that was the same name she'd heard in her dreams. When Faith said yes, the Mother Superior was convinced and told her, "Go home, my child. Perhaps God is sending you a message through these dreams." The next day, Faith returned to her aunt's house. Mama Rose was shocked to see her, and after hearing her story, still insisted on sending her back to the convent. Days later, George went back to the convent, still curious and eager to know why Faith had run away from him that day. But the Mother Superior told him that she had already left. After much pleading and explanation, she finally gave him Faith's address. The next day, while Faith was washing clothes, her aunt came out with some more, even though they weren't dirty. Faith tried explaining, but her aunt grew angry and poured sand on the clean clothes. As they argued, George suddenly walked in. Faith froze, whispering, "That's the man from my dream." Her aunt, shocked and furious, grabbed the bucket of water Faith was using and poured it all over George. He stood there confused, wondering what on earth was going on. What would you do if you were in George's shoes? Later that day, George returned home and explained everything to his friend, who couldn't help laughing at the ridiculous scene. They joked about it for a while before changing the subject. The next morning, George went back to Faith's house. He watched carefully from a distance before knocking. Faith came out, but just as they began talking, her aunt returned. Faith quickly ran inside while George left. As he was getting into his car, he noticed Faith had left her rosary behind. The following day, George returned again, but when he saw her aunt outside, he immediately turned back. Later, while Faith and her aunt were on their way to the market, Faith pretended she needed to use the toilet. Her aunt gave her only 5 minutes. Quickly, Faith ran to meet George and secretly gave him her phone number. What do you think? Was she right to do that? That night, both Faith and George talked on the phone for hours. She explained why she ran away the first day she saw him. The next morning, they were chatting again when her aunt entered the room, forcing her to hang up immediately. Later that day, they had a video call. George was cooking while talking to her, making Faith laugh as he tried to act like a chef. The next day, Faith visited George at his house. She was shocked. It was the same house she had seen repeatedly in her dreams. They talked for a while, and when he offered her something to drink, she asked for water, but George insisted on wine. They drank together and kept chatting until Faith fell asleep. George gently carried her to one of the rooms to rest. Meanwhile, that evening, when her aunt returned home, the door was locked and Faith was nowhere to be found. She tried calling her, but Faith didn't answer. The next morning, Faith returned home, only to meet her aunt throwing her bags outside, yelling at her to leave. Faith begged and tried to explain what had happened, but her aunt refused to listen. Desperate, Faith called George to tell him everything. Without wasting time, George rushed over and tried to reason with her aunt, but she wouldn't listen either. So, he took Faith back to his house, welcomed her warmly, and made sure she felt comfortable. Shortly after, his friend arrived and pulled him aside, warning him to be careful, that he was getting too attached to Faith. But George ignored him. The next day, Faith came out beautifully dressed, and George couldn't stop admiring her. Was love slowly taking over his heart? As days passed, their bond grew stronger. Even when George's friend came to watch a football match with him, George spent all his time with Faith instead. Angry and jealous, his friend walked out, and George had to run after him to apologize. The next morning, Faith woke up to find a small gift on the table. When she opened it, it was an iPhone. Overjoyed, she ran to thank George, then decided to cook for him to show her appreciation. While she cooked, George teased her playfully, and she responded with a shy smile. It was such a sweet moment. That night, George and his friend sat out chatting about life and love. The next day, George and Faith were seen laughing and talking as usual. The following morning, Faith opened up about her childhood, how she loved helping children, and how it broke her heart to see little ones hawking on the streets of Lagos. She wished her aunt could understand her better, but she didn't. Touched, George promised that they would both visit her soon to make peace. 2 days later, Mama Rose sat outside when George and Faith arrived. They both knelt before her, asking for forgiveness. Moved by their humility, she forgave Faith, and they embraced lovingly. Weeks later, Faith and George went to the beach to have some time together. The waves, the breeze, and their laughter filled the air. There, George looked into her eyes and asked her to be his girlfriend. Faith smiled and said yes. George was overjoyed, and they continued enjoying their day, happy and free. Indeed, Faith had brought them together, both in name and in destiny. So tell me, guys, what did you think about this story? Do you believe George and Faith were truly meant to be? Let us know in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe for more captivating stories like this one. Thanks for watching. Until we meet again, bye.